Delighted to welcome Martin Salama to the show. He's the architect of the Warrior's life code. He specializes in uplifting people frustrated in their life, quickly shifting their mindset to uncover their greatness so they can manifest their true potential. He's on a mission to help transform people's mindset, boost their self-esteem, and really achieve their full potential for all the opportunities that the world has to offer. The code, the Warrior's life code, helps people live in abundance and make the world a magical place to live in so they can live an incredibly full life. Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nigel. I'm so excited to be here with you. I really am. I'm looking forward to a fun, informative conversation with you.
Brilliant. Me too. And for listeners, and you'll probably get this because I'll probably snippet some of the bits that we did. Martin and I tried to do this interview a number of weeks ago and had challenges with connectivity, internet, and things like that. But we're trying again, and everything crossed. As well as everything crossed for Wrexham, because Martin, whilst not being in the UK, is a Wrexham fan, self-declared Wrexham fan. So
I am a Wrexham fan.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about you and where you are and kind of a little bit of your background.
Absolutely. So I'm on the other side of the pond. I'm in New York City, Brooklyn, New York, to be specific. And even though Brooklyn is the fourth largest city in America, it is part of New York City as well. It's one of the 5 boroughs. I've lived here for most of my life. For about 20 years, I lived down in New Jersey by the Jersey Shore and came back to be back in Brooklyn in my old haunt. I've been a life coach for the last, 12, 13 years. And it's been really a transformative thing for me as well as for many of the people I work with.
Brilliant. Superb. It's interesting when I talk to people, and especially over in the States, you're mentioning Jersey Shore, and all these images pop up in my head, and the boroughs and Brooklyn, and for all of the films that I've ever seen, and as I mentioned before, my little one's in the other room watching videos of reruns of Friends, and it's kind of it feels like it's somewhere I know, but I don't. It's really interesting. I'd love to get over.
Well, we can't wait till you come here.
Yeah. I've got it's on one of my lists. It's on one of my bucket lists, along with a load of other places as well. And so it's interesting. My audience here, we've got they're project managers. They will be looking at ways to always work on how to get the project better, how to do that. But many of us will maybe get stuck, maybe not get as far as we want to with our careers, or just find things difficult to continue. But I know it's hence the reason we've got you on the call, really, to kind of have a chat about how you help people. And I suppose going back to basics is really what made you do that, and what did you do before you were doing the life coaching?
Right. So, and first thing is I want to just acknowledge that I appreciate where you're coming from for project managers. And I honestly believe that if a project manager understands the leadership starts with them, and that the more inclusive they are of the people around them, that's how they can be successful for them, for their organization, for the business, for the company they work for, and for the people that work with them.
Yeah.
So we'll get to more of that. So it's a great service that you're doing out there for project managers, putting this podcast out. So good on you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for me, I could look back. I was a businessman for the first 45 to 50 years of my life. I grew up in that mindset. I grew up in that environment. My father was a businessman, had his own business, and that was the mindset I always had. But you know what? As the owner of a business, you are a project manager over everybody, and every one of the department managers that are there. It's your job to make sure that they're all performing to their best. So I think I was introduced to that at a young age, because every time I had off from school, my mom sent me to go to my dad's factory, which was a couple of miles away from home. And looking back now, I know why. I finally understand why. I was ADHD without being diagnosed for most of my life until I was in my 50s. So any day off from school, my mother's like, get this kid out of the house.
Give him something to do.
Sorry?
Give him something to do.
Give him something to do. Exactly. So I would go to work with my dad. And, my dad was old school, real old school. Never showed you his emotions, was a tough guy. But then when he came to the factory, I learned so much from watching him that it took me years to understand how much of an effect he had on me, on my life as a businessman and as a person. I would watch him every morning walk through the entire factory that was 2 floors and had maybe 150 to 200 people in it. And he would say good morning to every single person in the factory. And every day he would stop by different people. Hi, Mary. How are you today? How's your husband? What's going on? Blah, blah. And then keep walking and then find someone else to say hello to. And the next day he would say hello to other people. But he made sure to walk through the factory every morning and say good morning to everybody.
Oh, wow.
And I look back now and realize he was showing them that he cared about them as individuals. And as a result, they cared about him and the place they worked.
And it is critical. At the end of the day, we are all, we've all had organizations or managers who see what you're doing as transactional and don't see you as the person. You feel like a number sometimes, don't you? And when you feel like a number, your level of engagement, and engagement's a buzzword these days in a lot of organizations. And
yes,
you could argue there's a lot of these engagement studies, and organizations are working on getting their engagement number up. I'm not entirely sure that they shouldn't be focusing on getting their engagement number up. They should be focusing on the people which will get their engagement number up. So some organizations have probably got the emphasis the wrong way around.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean? When the time when you're doing your annual review of it's the old staff surveys where you'd get a whole bunch of stuff appearing the week before the survey comes out that reminds you of all the great things the company's done, which I'm an old cynic at times with those sort of things. Sometimes people do need reminding, which is fair, because you'll forget what happened 12 months ago. But also, I think it's kind of a controversial dynamic with those sort of things. So just thinking about your father there, what was the business he ran? What was it?
So he manufactured tablecloths. And this was back in the 60s and 70s. And they were called plastic flannel-backed tablecloths.
I know the sort of thing you mean.
The top was flat plastic, and then on the bottom was a material to basically keep it on the table so it doesn't slide off.
Yeah.
Right? And he sold those for 20, 30 years. He manufactured it and all that. And I would go to work with him and watch him in that dynamic. And then he'd say, you need to understand every aspect of this business if you're going to be the boss of this business one day. And he wouldn't even put it that way, but I knew that was the underlying thing he was teaching me. And he'd say, you have to know how to do everything in this place, because if you're going to tell somebody to do something, you better be able to do it yourself before you tell them to do it. Right? Because if they give you pushback, you got to show them that you're willing to do what you're asking them to do. So when I was a teenager, I was cleaning the toilets. I was cleaning the bathrooms. And then I graduated to learning how to make boxes, how to take the boxes and turn them into, instead of flat pieces of cardboard, opening them up and putting the tape on them so that they could put the merchandise in. And then the next day I would learn, or another time I would learn how to fill the orders and fill the boxes and learn how to count correctly and make sure that they got everything and checking off the orders. And then I would go upstairs and learn how to cut the tablecloths and fold them. The one thing I never did was sew them. I think he was afraid if I sat down at the sewing machine to put the fringe around the end of it.
Yeah.
But I did pretty much everything. Even to the point that when the merchandise came in that had to be cut, they were called piece goods. We'd unload the trucks with the piece goods in the heat of summer, sweating like crazy doing it. And his reasoning was, if a truck comes in, you got to tell these boys, you, go empty the truck. And they're looking like, who the heck are you? Oh, you're not going to do it? Then I'm going to do it. And if I do it, you're out of job. I don't need you. right? But doing it in a way that shows them that you respect them, but they have to respect you too.
Yeah, I get that. I think it's interesting because it's my what I do is IT, and whilst I've got a uh, some IT background, my primary background's accounting, and whilst I have a technical mind in some ways, I had some technical training. I wouldn't say I'm the best, so I can cut some code. It probably wouldn't work, but I can cut some code. But uh, being able
But
to
you have to have the basic understanding
yeah.
so that you can lead your team.
Yeah, and it's quite an interesting thing. You have to get to a point I've found as a PM, certainly my field, where I will drop into different projects where it may be a different technology. It'll be a different team who know that technology. It'll be a different customer and a different business driver and business need. And I find forever that I'm in a position where right, I need to understand this. And you have that imposter syndrome to start off with, whilst managing a project's fine, but knowing knowing the daft questions to ask takes a
Right.
little time to get there. And it's like you said there, is you see someone who's maybe cutting the items and go, they're taking twice as long as you think they should do. Now, if you don't understand what's involved in doing it, you may not be good at it, but if you understand what's involved in it, you can make a judgment on how long it takes, doesn't it? And that's the thing,
Exactly.
is that being able to make that judgment and challenge the team to get the best out of what they're doing, but also to support them, because that thing is and it's something that
It's that delicate balance.
yeah. If sit there with the team and go, right, okay, what's going on? We're having these problems. It's taking ages. Why is it taking ages? Show me. And you sit there and they go, well, yeah, and this happens and this happens, and this takes 4 days for someone to come back and do it. Sorry, that I can deal with. I can do something about that. If there's
Right.
a delay, if there's someone who's ignoring someone, I can deal with it. I can help them with it. And being able to help your team, work out how to help your team is
Right. But the other part of it is you got to have the team understand that we got to cut through the BS.
yeah,
It's not about blaming others. It's not about looking to pass the buck.
yeah,
Take responsibility for who you are in this role and what you can do about it to make it move forward.
yeah, yeah. I think it
Because their
when you
ego gets in the way.
yeah, and it's understandable, isn't it? You don't want to be seen to be in. uh, and I think the thing is people have been conditioned, and it's less so. I see it interestingly with the younger generation that are coming through into organisations where they're much more willing to go, that's wrong, or I've done this wrong, than maybe
Yeah.
some of us older dyed in the wool guys that have got if you get something wrong, people you would be shamed on it, and as you say, that ego is, oh, I'm always right, especially in a management role. Managers kind of feel they should always be right, and
Yep.
I see a slightly different approach, or maybe it's just the people I've worked with that have a different approach, where people will just say, well,
Yeah.
push back on me, and that I know certainly with my level of experience that I'd have had at their age, I wouldn't have pushed back in the same way. I wouldn't have been brave enough to do it. Uh,
Absolutely.
but I think it's because that bullshit has been cut away from both sides of the fence a bit more now, isn't it?
100%. And the other part of it is that we grew up in a time where the phrase, and I actually wrote a blog about this on my website, the phrase be a man has different meaning than it did when we were kids.
Yeah,
Right? When we were kids, be a man meant don't show your emotions. Don't ask for help.
yeah,
And don't let anybody see your vulnerabilities.
yeah.
Because those are weaknesses and they'll cut you down.
And
Today,
it was competitive.
thank goodness. Sorry?
It was a competitive world as well. Is that
Competitive
it
world.
was?
Yep.
It was that, and yeah, I know you've got the sales things where it's saying like two people winning, but actually it was about beating the other person, whoever that was.
Yep.
Very much
Yep.
of it,
There used to
rather
be
than-
a commercial around here for deodorant. Don't ever let them see you sweat.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
But today, if you're not showing the vulnerability, you're not authentic. And if you're not authentic, how do you get buy-in from anybody else?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So as a project manager, you've got to be willing to say, let me know what you think, because I don't know everything. And if I admit that I don't know everything, I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to hear what you have to say. I may not go with what you're saying, but at least I'm respecting you enough to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I agree. I was talking today. I was on an interview with Andy Kaufman of the People and Projects podcast, and we were talking about decisions and being a leader and things like that. I can't remember how we got to this, and there was something we talked about was the what your team want to see from you is decisiveness. And do you know what I mean? If someone comes and taking that accountability, I try to do that. It's kind of right. You're telling me that. Okay, I understand
Yeah.
it. But I want to go this way. It's my bits on the block if it goes wrong.
Right.
I'll take if it's wrong. I'll take accountability. I'm always willing to take it. Maybe I do it too much. I think I've been told is to say, well, it's my team. I said do this. It's my fault. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I take it that way because I think part of it is because I'm there to make decisions, right or wrong. But if you
Yeah.
don't make decisions, you don't move forward. And you,
By not making a decision, you're making a decision.
yeah,
We got to be clear about that to the people out there.
it's
So
a
the
rush.
people who think, "Oh, I'm just not going to decide," you made the decision.
Yeah. Well, it's one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite bands from Rush, where they have the line, "If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice." And that,
I don't know that song by Rush, but I know Rush, and
yeah,
that's a great line.
yeah. It's I can't remember what the name of the song is now that it's from.
What comes to mind for me when you hear say Rush is Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Neil Peart on the drums is and if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, and it resonated with me many years ago. That did, and I've in fact went in my pointing behind
It's
me
so
here,
true.
in my book here at some point I do it. It's about decision making, about choosing. It is what you have to do, and if you don't, as a manager, you're going to leave yourself in a situation where it's not. You just don't move forward, and not moving forward, even if you go in the wrong direction,
Yeah,
slightly can change that. You can always change your decisions as well. I think that's the other
that's
thing
right.
is changing your opinion was seen as something you shouldn't do. You decide
Exactly,
you're going,
which is incorrect as well.
yeah, because you choose a route and you work out it's the wrong route and you carry on it. That's madness.
Actually,
Absolutely.
it's interesting that you bring that up because I was on a call recently earlier today, and I was talking about just that. I have part of my book and part, I've written a book. You and I talked about it offline. It's called
Yeah.
Worrier to Warrior, right? And along with that, I put together a side thing of a card deck, right? And in the
Okay.
card deck and in the book and in my course, I talk about this concept called the cycle of A's. Okay, and it's getting what you want without feeling overwhelmed. Okay, and it's very apropos to the conversation we're having about project managers and everything. It's the first day is ask for what you want. Ask the universe, ask God, ask your team for what you want. Right. The next step is act towards getting it. People think, oh, the law of attraction means just ask and it'll come to you. No, it's not that simple. You've got to do the work for it. And then here's where the third one comes in. The last A is attitude, which is don't be emotionally tied to the outcome. Because if you are, then you won't deviate from the course you're on. Because you'll say, I know this is the way I got to do it. But it could be, and let me get a little spiritual here for a minute. Maybe God's trying to tell you that's not the way it should be done. And it's okay to make a course correction as you go along.
But it's difficult, isn't it? Because we see,
It is. It is.
you look out there, you see everything on LinkedIn and all the rhetoric on different places where it's kind of quitters never quit. Yeah, winners never quit, quitters never win. And then you see the opposite and saying, yeah, quit when you need. I think I saw some of Stephen Bartlett saying quit, but on something, make sure you quit on the things and use that as a positive. But then you look at something where he wasn't giving up on the things. It's I think us as individuals can be bombarded with quotes from different things to tell us how to do it. You'll get
Absolutely.
sports quotes, you'll get philosopher quotes, you'll get successful business people quotes. And actually contextually, for me as an individual, I've got more cynical on those, obviously. Some of them I like. Some of them I don't. And you get quite cynical where you sit there and go, yeah, okay, you're saying that, but you're saying that, and I'm not sure it was Mr. Spock that said that. I think it was Einstein or whatever. But you get these things coming through, and it's as an individual trying to, if you're in a career, if you're taking a course of action, if you're in a relationship, whatever it is, and it's
But
I'm
that's
trying to
where,
think.
you know what? That's where the whole mindset comes in. And that's where I work on. That's my life. Is
Mhm.
I went through so much time of my life saying, but I can't.
Hmm.
And every time, Henry Ford said, if you say you can or if you say you can't, you're right in both situations. It's as long as you keep saying I can't, your mind is shut off to it.
Yeah,
So it's about changing and saying, instead of saying I can't, if you can say I can, great. But if you're not there yet, say, how can I? What
yeah,
steps can I do to get me there?
yeah,
Right. So instead of all those pundits and all those lines that you get, it's putting the metal, the pedal to the metal. What are you going to do to make it happen? Don't wait for
yeah.
somebody else to do it. Somebody's got to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, it is us, and I think there's
If it is
it,
to be, it is up to me.
yeah. For many years, I've strived to find a sort of a secret source to changing me, and I think sometimes it's just a case of just looking at um I'm now I'm reading James Clear Atomic Habits as an example. I just started reading that to
Mhm.
trying to reset some habits I've got in there. And there's
That's
another
a
book
great
I'm
start.
yeah, some books about deep work, and then I look at a book from years ago called The Go Getter and Who
Oh,
Moved My Cheese and these
love
sort
it.
of things, some Og Mandino things and things like that. So there's some amazing stories, parables, stuff that will help you. Um,
Yeah.
and and remembering it is hard, because it is a case of that wearing yourself down. And I suppose if we're in, um, what do you do when people come to you and start talking to you about, right? Okay, I want to improve. I want to change. I'm
Yeah.
not. I suppose what you what's the reason that people come and chat to you? Uh,
Well, very often people come to me because their mindset is in a space where they're going, is this all there is?
okay, yeah, I
Right?
get that.
It's almost like an existential crisis.
Mm,
And I say to them, you're asking the wrong question, because if you're asking is this all there is, my answer to you is yes. But it's the way you're looking at it that's the problem. It's because if you think that this is all there is, it means that you're looking to have somebody else change your life. Someone else can't change your life. You have to change your own life. So is this all there is? Yes, because you're looking at it the wrong way. And I start with my clients at a very simple level with three simple words: admission, cleansing, and celebration. Okay. So admission is admit what's going on in your life isn't working for you. Whatever it is that you want to change, you've got to admit that the past isn't working. And here's Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting change.
yeah,
Right. So number one, I admit that what's doing is not working. Right. So if you're in a project and they keep doing this and you're like, but it's not working. So then maybe we need to look at it from a different angle or come up with a new code or something. So that's number one. Admit what's happening isn't working. The next step is cleansing, which is changing what's happening, right? I'm admitting that's not working and I'm willing to do something to change. And then as these little things start happening that weren't happening before, even if it's the smallest thing, celebrate it. It could be the smallest thing. Let's use a personal example. You decide, okay, I need to lose 50 pounds. Okay. And what I'm doing isn't working. So I got to change. Am I going to exercise? Am I going to eat better? What am I going to do? Okay. Now you start doing those things. Now, if you're going to wait till you hit 50 pounds to celebrate, you got a long time to go.
yeah,
So if you celebrate when you hit 2 pounds or 3 pounds, and don't just say, oh, it's a coincidence. No, I did something to make it happen. And then the other side where the cycle of A's comes in, if you change things and that you don't start losing weight, don't get down on yourself. Say, okay, what do I need to change more?
Yeah.
Right. And now you could take this simple example and put it towards anything you do, like in work, like in a project you're working on as a manager. Okay. It's about maybe this person isn't suited for this specific task. Let's take that person and put them on that task and see what happens. And it's not telling that first person you're not good. It's not working for you. So let's come at it a different angle with a fresh mindset.
Yeah.
And see where it takes you.
So it resonates that with it really does resonate with the stuff I've been reading from James as well this last night. They talk about that inner identity,
Yeah,
and kind of what do you want to be, and therefore, and that's kind of like that first bit of the admission sort of thing of saying, well, okay, so there's something I don't like, so what is it? And the way that they look at it is, rather than it being the what you want to be, it's who you want to be, kind of thing.
exactly.
So
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that. So,
yeah,
because that's where I was going. And when you said what you want to be, I said, it's the wrong question. The question is, who do you want to be? And as the leader of a group, right, you wake up every morning and you have things that's supposed to happen. And you're saying to yourself, how am I going to get this done? How am I going to get that done? How am I going to get this done? You're asking the wrong question. As in a team, you say, who can I get to do this?
Yeah.
For the team, for the group, for the project. And there's a fantastic book. I've been doing this for a while, this idea of having other people. And I learned it almost 30 years ago from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Great book.
Right? Great book. And he said, I want to be the dumbest person in my business. I want to have the smart people around me. So I changed it to the people that know how work with or for the people that know why.
Yeah.
Right. And I've been practicing that for many years. And then about a year ago, somebody introduced me to a book which crystallized it. And it's called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And in this book, he's saying, you're asking the wrong question. Stop figuring out how to do something and find the person who can do that something for you. I'll use myself as an example because it might be easier this way. So I'm a life coach and I'm a business coach and I help people go forward. And my greatest strength is getting in there and coaching the people. But I also need to have a website and a CRM and marketing and all that. And I can spend hours doing that stuff. Right. So let's just use the number. Let's say I'm worth $250 an hour. If I spend 4 hours doing something I don't know how to do, I've just wasted $1,000.
Yeah.
If I go find somebody who knows how to do that and pay them $50, $100 an hour and they do it in 2 hours, I've saved $800 or $900 because I found the right who to do the job I need to get done. It's the same thing as a project manager.
It's delegation. It's interesting because I did some sort of analysis, sort of a mind calculation, really, for my book about delegation, around the fact that if you're doing a piece of work as an individual, and you're doing a spreadsheet as a project manager, and you've got a team of 20 people, and you do that spreadsheet. But actually, if you can teach one of your other guys to do that spreadsheet, it's the old adage. Yeah, you teach them; it'll take you longer to get it done that first time. But it means you spend half an hour showing them. Well, you may have done it in that time, but it takes them 2 hours to do it after you've shown them that half an hour. But that saves that time that you would have spent doing it, and then
Right.
as you have influence over a bigger organization, that your leverage is way bigger than the team who work for you. They can only leverage so much of your profitability of your organization, and therefore your time become the more leverage you get, the more value you get. And I've got friends who run a company called Codebreak, who are a marketing organization, and they on their podcast they talk about the $10 jobs, the $50 jobs, the $100 jobs, the
Same
$1,000
thing. Yeah.
jobs, and they're the ones who should be working on the $1,000 jobs, not the $10 jobs. And
Yeah.
again, another assimilation. My brother he's much better at this than me, to be honest, because he's running his own business, and he's happy to just pay someone else to do things that he's not skilled. He's incredibly skilled at building motorcycles and repairing motorcycles, and
Right.
all that stuff. He knows it upside down, inside out, and he's not the greatest social media web person. So
Right.
I messed around doing his website for some fun. So why would he do it instead of when he's got a brother who will do it for him? And even if I wasn't doing it, paying someone else to do it.
Paying someone else to do it. Exactly.
He would
This way,
just
he's spending the bulk of his time doing what he's best at.
yeah, and I do it at work. I'm quite good at it at work.
I'm sure you are.
But sometimes you get that thing where you end up dragging yourself down into stuff that you think is easier for you to do. You can get it done quicker.
You end up in a rabbit hole.
Yeah. And you kind of got to reset all the time, haven't you?
Right. And it's about getting the ego out of the way and realizing by teaching the guy how to fish is better than giving him the fish, in your example. By teaching him how to do the spreadsheet, it's better than handing him the spreadsheet done.
Yeah.
Because he may, number one, he learns the process. Number two, he may come up with better processes that you didn't think of.
Yeah. I had again talking to a colleague not long ago. They were talking about one of our younger members of the team, and their affinity to using ChatGPT as a tool like that. I use it, but it doesn't come into my brain as being the first thing. They went away, used ChatGPT. They said, "Well, I want you to do this. Come back with something better than what he asked for," because they used something better to say, right, okay, how do we do this? What's the best way of doing this? And you kind of go that people have access and have an affinity to tooling that you and it isn't an age thing. It's just different people and different experiences.
But it's important to understand that it's just a tool. You can't expect it to do the work. No. You take it and then extrapolate from it what you need. Because if you totally depend on it, it won't do it. Eventually it'll fail you. So it's understanding that slippery slope.
Yeah, you've got to. It's the funny thing, isn't it? It's the old adage when we were growing up at school, and it's changed a little bit. It was still there, but doing maths at school, and it was always the thing that said you need to be able to work it out in your head, because just because you've got a calculator doesn't mean the calculator does it right. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of think, well, yeah, maybe if you haven't put the things in right into the calculator, but it's right. It's like Google. I've done it myself. Yeah.
Right.
How many people trust the sat nav? How many people trust Google and have put in the wrong Whitchurch, as we get in the UK? I don't know if you have places that are regular names of places in the States, but Whitchurch in the UK, there's a lot of Whitchurches.
Right, of course.
White Church is what it's from. There would have been a lot of white churches. So you go to follow it blindly without knowing, actually, I'm heading the wrong direction. I'm heading north instead of south, and having that skepticism in there.
Right.
You've got to have that with all tools, really. You've got to go, hang on, is that? Yeah, that's okay. That healthy skepticism, isn't it?
Right. Plus, ChatGPT gets things wrong. Last year, when I was writing my book, at the last chapter, I wanted to put something about statistics about people, the percentage of people that finish books.
Yeah.
Right. So I asked
ChatGPT. Or finish writing.
Sorry?
Finish reading or finish writing?
Finish reading. Reading. So I asked ChatGPT to look up some data for me, and it gave me great data. So I put it in. Luckily, I have somebody on my team who checks everything. She's a fact checker, and she went, "That's wrong."
Funny, I didn't use ChatGPT, but again, from my note, there was a thing on productivity and an article that I cited that's been cited so many times on the internet. Around the fact that when you get an interruption, it takes you 20 minutes to get back into flow state that you were before, which is great. And I'm sure you'll have seen that on different
Right.
from Huffington Post to, you know
Right.
what I mean? Not like just a noddy website like mine, on ones that are kind of respected. And then I'd done it, and I'd taken that, and I used that, and it to be fair, doesn't matter. It's still the point that it made was still valid. But I think it was the night before, or no, I published the book. It was the night before a presentation where I was using that as a main thing, and I published. I thought I'll read this because I haven't actually read the paper that it was talking to. I believe
Right.
the reasonably good news organization. And when I read it, I kind of went, doesn't actually say that. Not exactly what it says. It doesn't take you 20 minutes again. But as I said, I didn't believe 20 minutes. Anyway, in my article, I put the fact that even if it was 10 seconds, then you compound it by the number of times you get interrupted a day,
Right.
then it extrapolates anyway. So it's exponential. So
Right. Did you ever read the book, The Myth of Multitasking?
I haven't read the book that one, but multitasking for me is both a boon and a nightmare. So listening to stuff while doing stuff, you know what I mean? Listening to podcasts, driving and things like that. I think there are certain things you can do. Fundamentally, as you said, the myth of what you're doing is multiple things badly, or multiple things not as well as you could.
Right. Right. Absolutely. No
You might
question.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
just,
this book talks about how when you think you're multitasking, you're totally not.
no.
It's a misnomer, the word itself.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
the more you try to think you're multitasking, the less productive you are.
Yeah. You're context switching all the time, aren't you?
Exactly.
I was writing the section on sort of focus and stuff in my book, and interruptions and trying to do multiple things at once. And the day I was writing it, and I put it in there, I was watching my one daughter trying to make a cup of coffee while watching a video on her phone, while doing something else. And she was trying to do a lot of things, and she was doing all of them really badly at the same time. And it's one of those ones you sit there and go, yeah, I can see that. But it's difficult. We get in the habit. Like you say, people tell you can get stuff done. And we've got all these tools. We've got our mobile phones, which allow us to do those multitasking items on there. I've got 3 screens here, which I'm usually working with. I know Terry Pratchett, incredible writer, 6 screens he used to have years ago in front of him. Now, actually, you're right. It's that multitasking doesn't work.
Right.
It's how you get out of it, and then that focus can. And actually, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with doing more than one thing together, as long as you accept that that's not necessarily the most productive.
Exactly.
And I'll accept that. Yeah, I'll accept if I'm watching the TV, and I'm checking something on the phone. I know that if I'm looking up who the actor is on IMDb, I may not see and may not spot what's happened in the next bit of the show.
You mean I'm not the only one that does that?
Who the hell? What has he been in? Where do I know him from? You know what I mean? It's all that.
Like the guy from The Gentleman, the brother from The Gentleman we were talking about before we started the podcast. I go, I know that guy.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it is. And but that's what it's for. The end of the day. It's for. You know what I mean? Whereas normally you'd have sat there for weeks racking your brain, and then sat in a pub chatting to someone else 3 days later, you'd have remembered it, wouldn't you?
Right. Amazon Prime has this thing, I don't know if it still does, where you could push a button and it shows you about the actors that are on the screen.
Yeah. But then the problem I found with that is sometimes what it does, it pops it up, and it shows someone who isn't in the scene, who's a surprise.
Right.
You see their name there, and you go, well, where are they? And then, the surprise. Yeah. It's kind of exposed. But that kind of stuff. So just thinking about where you've, as we sort of talked about, you were there with your dad, and you were running. I'm guessing you kind of walked in, took over that kind of business and run that kind of business as you got older.
Well, it was interesting. That was my thought, that I was always going to take over my dad's business. But when I was about 20, he broke up with his partner. And they went back and forth as to who was going to take the business. And finally, he just threw his hands up. He said, okay, you take it.
Oh, right.
And the guy, within 2-3 years, ran it into the ground. Okay. Well, my dad went on his way and did some other stuff. And a few years later, he put me into business with an older gentleman in the same business. But, it was okay. And that was one of the many businesses I had over the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And then, I had successes, I had failures along the way. And then in 2008, when the financial crisis came, it wiped me out.
All right.
It wiped me out. And it took me about a year to get out from under the financial burden and the emotional and mental burden that it put on me to lose everything. And I finally said to myself, you know what? I don't love being a businessman. I never really loved the highs and lows that come along with that. So I said, I have a chance now to reinvent myself. What do I want to do? Because I'm at the bottom. I have nowhere to go but up. If I'm going down, I'm going underground.
That bad.
6 feet under, So
Jeez.
better to go up than 6 feet under. And I thought about it and I decided that the thing I always loved doing was getting involved in community organizations. I was always a leader. And as a leader, people would come into the organization and say, but, I can't do what you're doing. I'm like, but I don't want you to do what I'm doing. I need you to do what you're good at. So let's figure out what that is. And I realized I was coaching them. For 20 years, I was coaching people. And they would come and they would give their best potential. I was like, maybe that's what I should do. So I decided to become a life coach and show the people that they already know what they want to do. They just need to act on it.
Yeah. It's interesting because the phrase life coach immediately draws up certain imagery.
Yeah.
And I imagine that the industry is quite a difficult industry to differentiate you from the potential charlatans that are around.
100%. No question about it.
I mean,
but it's funny, when I first decided to get into life coaching, this was like 2010, 2011. Yeah. And I said to somebody, I'm going to become a life coach. And they said, for what team? Because they're thinking of me being a coach.
Yeah, I get it. And it is, and there's depending on your background, and definitely over here in the UK, there'll be a definite different openness to it over in the US. I imagine on the I'm guessing, and this could be generalization. Tell me if I'm wrong. Imagine the West Coast Americans are a lot more open to it than East Coast Americans.
I think you're right. Because they're much more pragmatist on the East Coast. They're very woo-woo on the West Coast.
Yeah, and it's kind of get past the BS and all that, and I just get to, for some reason, Meet the Fockers is popping into my head, and well, I know it's not. I know she isn't a life coach. It's the second one where it's right.
I knew what you meant.
Another one. I mean, what's her name? I
don't remember.
I can't remember the actress's name. She's amazing in the coach. She's kind of a life coach, and her husband's kind of a life coach as well. And
right. I can't remember the name, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Bob Streisand, isn't it? No.
Oh yeah, Barbra Streisand. Yeah, with she plays Robert De Niro's wife.
No, not Robert De Niro. She plays.
The other one, the other side.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I've forgotten his name.
So long.
Yeah, it'll all pop in.
And right now, the audience is laughing at us, saying, "You can't remember the people's names."
Yeah, and most people are saying, "Just look on IMDb. You were talking about it a minute ago. You fool, no."
But we're too busy talking to each other. We want to focus. We're not going to multitask here.
Yeah, it's Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman is the name.
Dustin Hoffman, right?
Yeah. So look, I've taken the mick out of the life coach word and things like that. But what is it? Describe what you do when someone comes to you and they've worked out they need someone to coach them. I know there's general coaching, things like that.
Right.
Business coaching, individual coach, sports coaching.
It could be down to the slightest niche that people can do. But before I explain to you, let me give you an overview of what coaching is in general, as opposed to therapy. Right? Because people say, what's the difference between therapy and coaching? And to be honest, there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
I learned this in coaching school, and I use it till this day. Therapy takes you from dysfunctional to functional. Coaching takes you from functional to optimal, right?
Right.
So I've had people come to me who want me to coach them. And after a few conversations or even sessions with them, I'm like, you're not ready for me. I can't give you what you need. You need therapy.
Yeah. And that's a
I'm
different
not a
profession.
therapist.
Yeah.
So coaches in a general term, coaches are good at asking the questions for the client to figure out what they want. They ask them leading questions to get them to figure out the answers that they already know, but for whatever reason is buried in there and they can't get it out. Okay. So that's a general term. Now, for me, what do I do? Right now, I put together a program where I help coaches get out of their own way so that they can put together a 7-figure coaching business guaranteed within 2 years.
Wow.
Because if they follow my system and follow what they do, what I tell them to do, they'll get there. And how do I put it even better? I've been in so many of these coaching programs over the last 10, 12 years where they go, you get in and you do it and you'll make all this money and you pay everything up front. And they go, it's a done for you, a done with you program. But at the end of the day, I found them to be a done to you programs because they took my money. They said they were going to help me. And then for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So I decided to build one where it's a risk reversal strategy. I tell them, you pay me 12.5% up front. Then you don't pay me again until you start making money because I'm coaching you not on information. I'm coaching you on results.
So that is the Warrior's life code kind of thing that you talk about.
Exactly. And the life, for anybody out there, I about 10 years ago, I took the word life and turned it into an acronym for live incredibly full every day. And what I'm talking about there is having a happy life, but also a meaningful life. Because you could be happy with no meaning. And you could have a meaningful life with no happiness. So happiness is self-love, self-care, even selfish. Meaningful is selfless. What are you doing for others, for the world, for whatever? So when you live incredibly full every day, you're waking up every morning and saying, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to appreciate what's going on around me. I'm going to literally write down 3 things I'm happy about that I'm grateful for today. I'm going to walk out with a mindset of everything's going to be great. I'm going to live incredibly full every day. I'm going to look for opportunities. I'm not going to even see the problems that might come my way. And that's what I coach them on, is changing that mindset.
Yeah. It's interesting. It kind of the life thing kind of resonates with me a little bit towards the Ikigai concept. I'm sure you'd have seen that. Is the kind of the that intersection between our it's a Japanese principle of happiness. I think is where it comes from, in the idea of doing something that is of value to the community, something that you're good at and you're capable at it, something that you enjoy and are passionate about
Your
it.
God-given gift.
Yeah, and something you can get paid for.
Right, exactly.
So, and kind of stitching those 4 things together and finding something in that little sweet spot in the middle.
Right.
And it's really, I have got a diagram of it somewhere. It's a really interesting model because obviously it's done as Venn diagrams, the way it's represented, and each one at each intersection between each one or between 3,
right,
there's a descriptor of how you feel and how and what that might mean.
Yeah.
So if you are incredibly good at something and get really paid, and people will pay a lot of money for you doing that, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the American footballer,
Right,
who doesn't enjoy American football and doesn't see American football as a thing that's contributing to the betterment of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But they're incredibly good at it and they're paid an incredible amount of money for it. But it doesn't mean they might be happy. And that's the way, and the same with a musical artist, an actor, they could be incredible at it and they could be paid a lot of it. But if it doesn't give you those other 2 areas as well, you could imagine, and you'll see a lot of people out there who are brilliant, and it's famous people
Right. But
who are famously unhappy, and everyone sits there going, "But you've got all that. How could you be? If I had all that, I'd be happy."
of course,
But
it's easy to say. But you know
yeah,
what? And there's the other side of the coin too. I'll give you a perfect example. I have a woman that's in my program right now, and her focus is to help women coach other women who are going through domestic violence. Okay. And she has a program.
yeah,
And what she wants to do is help teach women her program on helping people get through domestic violence so that they can have a life of harmony. Okay. So so she was struggling in the beginning with, how do I get people to understand that it's okay to do that as well as to make money from it? She
yeah,
was putting out something that was meaningful, right? But she was getting in her own way about charging for it. And so
yeah.
were the people that she was getting in there. So I said, it's okay to say that I want to make an impact in the world. And as a result of making an impact, I'm going to make money.
The thing, is on top of that, if you can make an impact in the world and you can get paid for making that impact in the world, that allows you to make more impact in the
Exactly.
world.
Exactly.
Because
It's a perpetual cycle.
yeah, and I know it's a little bit. With that example, is a kind of a slightly facetious example in some ways, but there's a podcast that I listen to. I love it. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a free podcast, as a lot of our podcasts are. They have a Patreon page. You can pay for Patreon and you get some more content.
Right.
And the point that they always make on it is that when they're pitching for people to do it, saying, well, we've got jobs, right? We get paid. If this Patreon, you're gonna put your energy where we all need to live, we all need money, and you put your energy where the money generates the income, and therefore, if someone's doing that thing and they're doing that coaching in that instance, and they're doing it as a charity, they're not doing that. Well, they've still got to feed their family, still got to eat. You've still got to do all those things. So actually, that means then they'll be looking at something else in order to supplement that.
Exactly.
And by doing that, that means you haven't got as good time. You're doing the other stuff.
It's
at
a
the time when
diminishing returns.
yeah, exactly. So I can understand that.
Yeah.
Just thinking about, because I'm not. I know the one thing about Riverside is its timing on its clock confuses me quite often, because I'm sure we started nearly an hour ago, but it's telling me we've only done half an hour.
It's saying to me about 52 minutes.
Yeah, so mine's saying 31, so that's a bit weird. But
Wow.
then again, yeah, I think it's a bit weird. So,
But it feels like 31.
you said that you've got a book out.
I do.
I've had a book at it, and I thought, do you want to just chat to us about that? What's in there? What's that? How's that different to the Life Code and etc.?
Sure, absolutely. So what I did was, during COVID, when the world was on lockdown, right? And we thought it was going to be only 2-3 weeks. They said, "Oh, in 2-3 weeks from now, everybody will be out." By the way, Nigel, every day I figured out how to get out of the house.
Yeah.
I'd put on the mask. I'd wear the gloves. I'd go shopping. My wife came home and was working upstairs, and the kids were working in different rooms in the house. And I was like, I got to get out of here. The ADHD in me was acting up, and I got out almost every day. And then about 2-3 months into it was May, and I turned to my wife and I said, it's a pretty decent day. Let's go to Manhattan. Let's go to the city. In Brooklyn, we call Manhattan the city. And we said, let's just go see what's happening there. So we went, and if I'm sure the traffic where you are is crazy, but in New York, it's 10 times worse usually. And to go drive down Fifth Avenue could take you a long time. Well, that day, it was a Sunday. I was able to drive straight down Fifth Avenue without missing a traffic light. That's how empty the streets were.
Wow.
And I looked around and I'm like, where is everybody? Even though you're on the semi-lockdown, you can still go out, put your gloves on, put your mask on, stay 6 feet apart, or 2 meters or 3 meters, whatever it is, and go out there. Where is everybody? What is everybody so worried about? And then I realized the 10, 12 years before that, losing all my money and having to start all over again. Just as I was going to start doing that, my wife asked for a divorce. And I got through that. And I got through my divorce as I went through coaching. And then I was on a weight crazy. I got too heavy and I had to fix myself health wise. And then I started this whole life thing and understood that it was all in my control.
Yeah.
And I found a woman who loved me for who I was, and I loved her for who she was. And we got married almost 6 years ago. I turned to her, I said, I'm going to go on Facebook and tell people, I get why you're worried. And I've just come through 10, 12 years of what could be hell, but I came out the other side stronger. So let me show you how to be from a warrior to a warrior. Right? And that's the name of the book, Warrior to Warrior. Right? So now I'm in lockdown. I'm saying, I got to put what I've been coaching my people over the last 8, 10 years into down on paper and make it into like good stuff. And then I said, let me write the book. Let me make the course and do all that. And when I was writing the book, I said, what I have here is good, but they have to understand that it's coming. A lot of it is out of my own experience. So not only am I talking the talk, but I'm walking the walk. I'm showing them that they're not alone, that by understanding that there's other people like them who are struggling. And I've come up with ways of helping. Yeah, a lot of the coaches out there, they do the woo-woo, but there's no practical steps on how to do it. I said, that's where I have to bridge the gap. Show them I get their understanding the woo-woo part, but give them the practical steps to change it. Like I talked about admission, cleansing, and celebration, the cycle of A's, and things like that. And that's what the book is.
All right, brilliant. Superb. It's when you've got the ability to do that, because I think the great thing is you can, some people communicate and some people take those things of the written version so much better than they can on even an audio, and people have different communication styles, so making it available. And again, I'm guessing that from your point of view, you've found that you've got that passion and you'll get the joy from seeing people
I do
move through those coaching
and get that
levels.
aha moment.
Yeah, and see them fly and be the best they can be. That satisfaction, again, is great.
Nothing like it.
But it's nice to be able to. There are people out there that you can't reach. There are people out there who will never get around to reaching out and doing it, but they may pick up the book, and you'll be able to. There'll be people you'll be able to help that you don't know, that you don't know who they are.
No, I don't. I hope that whoever does pick up this book that I don't know gets something good out of it and moves forward. And when somebody read the book, somebody reads it, they said, "Boy, you get very, very vulnerable to the book." I go, "Of course I do." Because if I'm not being my true, authentic self to the people that are reading this book, why are they reading the book?
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah.
It's interesting when you said about the lockdown stuff with the differences. I live in a really rural area, so it's like 10 minutes, I'm down to a very nice picturesque canal. And the biggest thing we noticed was not the traffic wasn't about, it's quite a busy road near us, but not that bad. The traffic moves, it doesn't sit and move slowly.
Right.
The thing we noticed,
lucky you.
yeah, the thing that we noticed the most was how much more volume there was from the birds. It was crazy how loud the birds were because they weren't competing with the sound of the traffic.
Yeah, it's crazy. The little things that happen that you never realized before.
Yeah, and I'd sit there in the garden sometimes and I miss it now because I really found that when we had some really nice weather and sit there and just that cacophony of bird song. And whilst it was a hard and tough time, there were things in there, that lack of the air pollution was better and all those sort of things was astounding. And so, as I say, we're coming up on the hour now, and if people want to find out more about, well, actually, before I say that, was there anything you wanted to chat about, and other than Wrexham, because we'll be here for another 4 hours.
Well, if we've got an hour, we could talk about Wrexham.
Yeah. But hopefully by the time this goes out, as we were saying, it'll go out.
They'll have been promoted to League One.
Yeah, exactly. And fingers crossed.
And if they haven't, we're in a very sad state of the world.
It's going to be, well, there's still going to be a chance, isn't there? Anyway, by that time. If it was one, was there anything you wanted to chat about or mention as we're talking? And if there isn't, if people want to get hold of you, find
Hmm.
out more about
Well, yeah, yeah.
Warriors, life code, etc., where do they get hold of you? What?
Okay. So first I'll answer the first question, and then I'll tell you that part. So I think the number one thing I want to get out there is that wake up every day and be grateful for something. I have these books like a moleskin book like this, a nice piece of a quality book. And every morning I write three things. Not this one, this is a new one that somebody just gave me. I write three things I'm grateful for.
There's
Yeah,
my
here you
voice.
go. Every morning I write three things I'm grateful for. It could be I'm so grateful that the sun is shining today. It could be I'm so grateful it's raining. Whatever. Be grateful for three things. Now you get out of bed and you say, today I'm going to live incredibly full every day, or you come up with a mantra that's good for you. And then what I want you to do is go out there and make somebody laugh. And when they laugh, thank them for helping you fill your quota to make one person laugh. Now what you did is every day we make somebody laugh. You go to the supermarket, you talk to the cashier, you make her laugh, and you go on. She forgot about it, you forgot about it. But now imagine if you say to her, thank you for filling my quota to make somebody laugh today. You've just made a connection with that person. And they're thinking, that's interesting. And then say, you know what? Pass it on and make somebody else laugh and thank them for it.
That's really and yeah, if everybody did that, life would just be
Wouldn't it?
yeah, it would be. It would be great.
Just pay it forward. So now,
Yeah.
how do you find me? I've made it very simple. Connect with Martin.com.
Okay. Yeah.
Can't get
Brilliant.
more simple than that.
No, that's very true. So connectwithmartin.com. I'll stick it in the show notes and stuff like that. As long as I remember to do it, I probably will.
Right.
Uh, and if I don't, you can shout at me, but people will be able to get hold of you. All I've got to say, Martin, is thank you for being such an amazingly enthusiastic and knowledgeable guest on
Thank
the
you so
show.
much.
I've enjoyed the chat, and go Wrexham.
Go Wrexham, baby. Go Red.
Look after yourself. So we should be stopping now.
Yeah, it's still saying live recording.
Yeah, it's